Hello, everybody. I am Patrick Daugherty. Welcome to week 3 of a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. I am joined today, as always, by John Daigle, Kyle Dvorchak, and Denny Carter. We're going to dig into all your lineup questions in a second. You know, guys, we had a quiet first 2 weeks, but unfortunately, injuries have joined the chat. We are getting our first injury havoc Sunday. Lots of late breaking news, lots of big names in and out of lineups. None bigger than Dalvin Cook, apparently, John. We don't know for sure if he's not going to play against the Seahawks. That's a 4:25 p.m. Eastern kickoff. You got to make decisions about your lineups basically now. John, you see any hope that Dalvin Cook plays? Where do you rank Alexander Mattison in season long? Is Alexander Mattison a must-play in DFS?
I have Mattison after this news from overnight about Dalvin Cook's injury as the RB13, RB14 overall. I think he should be right ahead of, if not side by side with David Montgomery. If we knew for sure Dalvin Cook was out, and that's the way I think we should intelligently be leaning, then you could easily argue that Mattison will get more touches over Montgomery in a significantly better spot against a Seahawks defense that he actually ran for over 100 yards against just last year in a similar spot start. So I have full confidence in Mattison. Also, it spins into my DFS point of the day right off the top of the show because I don't know if we're playing him, but we are 100% putting him in the flex and then go from there. Use the morning, as we talked about last week, using late swap to your advantage. Use the morning results to then influence your decision on whether to play Mattison as the chalk or pivot to Van Jefferson, let's say, which is why we're putting Mattison in the flex. We have other options. You could even go Michel or Fournette if you really got that bad and you're chasing from behind just trying to get your money back. So just be wise about it, put him in the flex, and then adjust again before kickoff.
Did Alexander Mattison actually have a good spot start last year? But I feel like all I ever do is associate him with memories of pain.
I think he split them 50-50, right? He had the one that was obvious chalk, everyone was on, and he got killed, and the passing attack was great. But then I believe he had a second spot start that was good. And then the game he came in before the bad spot start, I believe, he filled in the second half for Dalvin Cook, and he killed that second half. And his stats look like a full start because I believe they were winning that game, so they were running a ton. So we all have this one bad memory of Alexander Mattison, but he's not that bad, and he's going to get a ton of work.
It was a week 6 blowout last year against Atlanta, a blowout loss, I should say, where him and Amir Abdullah, the whole Vikings running game was scripted out of that game. So, but he didn't see a whole lot of passing down work in that one. I don't know if you can draw too many conclusions, though. I mean, he is a decent enough pass catcher.
No, I just meant I'm human frailty, basically. I just associate Alexander Mattison with plug-and-play pain. But it was good to know that there actually was a game where he did well that I had apparently just blocked out. Kyle, more big injuries. Thankfully, these ones we knew about further in advance. Not that we didn't know about Dalvin Cook further in advance, but I kind of had just assumed Dalvin would play until we got word that he didn't. But T. Higgins is out for the Bengals. Deontay Johnson is out for the Steelers. They are playing each other today. Steelers a tough defense, we think. Bengals looking like a better defense through the first 2 games. Who do you like? Big receiver cores that are getting narrowed down. Do you see big adjustments for any of the Bengals or Steelers wide receivers today? Anyone you're prioritizing in DFS?
Yeah, I mean, you named the 2 obvious ones. Maybe if you wanted to get sneaky, Tyler Boyd on DraftKings, he's not very expensive. I think he's $4,700 or $4,900. But yeah, I don't think you have to get too strange. I'm not going to James Washington just because he'll probably be in on 3 wide receiver sets. Chase Claypool, top 30 in yards per route run. And the only problem with him has been that even, this year getting an increase in snaps, they're using Juju on every play. They weren't using Chase Claypool on every play. And that's really what you need to see from him if you're going to pay, almost $6K for him on DraftKings. So, and in your starting lineups, I'm a little worried when Chase Claypool plays for an offense where the quarterback is completely dust and then he doesn't run all of the routes. I'm not as worried. We don't expect that to happen this week. I actually think we'll get a full set of routes from Chase Claypool. Perfectly fine playing him as a flex, playing him in DFS. And then I was playing Ja'Marr Chase anyways. The dude is 12th in yards per route run through 2 games, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looks like the real deal after a shaky but ultimately meaningless preseason. So not a surprise. You should be playing Ja'Marr Chase, sans T. Higgins. It's sort of the Chase Claypool argument again that if we're going to get, especially in terms of targets, because T. Higgins did kind of look like he could be the number 1 target on the team. Tyler Boyd, in a 16-game, 17-game sample, Tyler Boyd is just straight up not out-targeting Ja'Marr Chase. Maybe he does it this week, but I wouldn't project that through a whole 16-game sample. So Ja'Marr Chase as the clear number 1 is just such obvious smash.
Daigle, is Chase Claypool winning a milli or losing a trilly? Just what's your gut feel in this? I want a second opinion.
The splits are good without Deontay Johnson, but I'm still worried about the spot. And you look at it at home against the Bengals, you think you shouldn't be worried. But we've seen that Ben Roethlisberger, whether it's been under pressure or throwing 20-plus yards downfield, he just obviously can't do it. He doesn't have the time with the line of scrimmage. His arm is similar to what it was from Week 8 on last year. So I would say I have not confidence, but I have Chase Claypool ranked as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, and you're just playing them basically for the situation. But are you concerned? Yeah, absolutely, you're concerned.
Let's pull up the wide receiver rankings really quick. Do we all have Chase Claypool ranked as a wide receiver 2 at this point? Producer Steven, I would like to know where we got him here. No, we don't. We still have him. I don't know. I think there might be some late adjustments there that need to be made. But I think I would consider Chase Claypool to be a wide receiver 2 today. So I'm on. He's going to win us a milli. Denny, we got running back chaos with the 49ers and the Rams. How do we feel about Trey Sermon? Are you trusting Trey Sermon? Are we trusting Sony Michel against a Bucs defense that is very scary against running backs?
Well, it depends on how you drafted. If you're talking about redraft leagues, for me, playing Sony Michel today with Darrell Henderson out doesn't seem like the worst thing. I'm welcoming it. I'm hoping for, a few targets in a game that'll probably be very pass heavy. No one runs against Tampa, but that doesn't mean that Michel is useless. Like in PPR formats, I think that he could, suffice. Definitely, he doesn't have much of a ceiling here, but I feel okay about playing him in 12-team leagues. The other guys you mentioned, Pat?
I mentioned the 49ers, didn't you?
The Niners, right. The Niners, yeah. We have to keep an eye on the inactives there. They hate Trey Sermon, but Trey Sermon might just fall into 20 touches if things break right for him today. And at that point, if Elijah Mitchell has not been declared out, correct? He's just doubtful.
Not officially. Yeah, he's doubtful. I think supposedly they said he could actually play through a doubtful tag, which almost never happens. He said it was only because everyone else is hurt, but that doesn't magically improve Elijah Mitchell's health.
That also sounds like if he's active, he's like super emergency, like literally plays zero snaps unless the other guys get hurt. So, which it's 49ers, but yeah.
And Green Bay's run defense is not great. So I think that their whole defense is not intimidating on any level. So I think that you can roll with Sermon. Do you feel good about it? Of course not. But keep an eye on the inactives.
That's why Sermon start set questions. They really don't exist. Like they're false. You just ask yourself, do you want to take a chance or play this other guy, whoever it may be, that their role, like a Mike Davis or Trey Sermon? Like we know Mike Davis's role, and I feel much more comfortable in that than just taking the risk on Sermon. Like it's not up to us. It's up to you to ask how risky do you want to be with Sermon? Like that's it, because we have no idea.
With the 49ers, real quick, instead of galaxy braining Trey Sermon, this morning, I honestly wish I were lying about this. I spent my morning galaxy braining Brandon Aiyuk, and I was thinking about all the cushion the Packers were leaving the Lions on Monday Night Football. And I'm like, you know what? Is this going to be a breakout week for Brandon Aiyuk? And I have also no idea why I'm thinking about this. But just throwing that out there. Anyone galaxy braining Jake Funk, by the way, instead of Sony Michel? All three of you are fairly sick people. Do any of you have DFS lineups with Jake Funk in them?
I do not.
No, I have Michel. Like the running back's the only part of that game I actually have, as we talked about in the DFS show. So I do have some Michel.
Jake Funk is the guy, like if you're stashing someone, literally you're not using him, like a Ronald Jones, let's say. Like you drop him for Jake Funk, and then if Sony Michel were injured today, we don't want that. But if it happened, suddenly you have the only healthy running back for the Rams. That's why you pick up Jake Funk, not because you're excited to.
Well, for people listening to this show, if you were trying to galaxy brain Jake Funk, and I'm sure there are people out there, if none of these three are doing it, do not do it. Just don't do it. If none of these three people can make a case to get Jake Funk in a DFS lineup, do not do it.
Just for argument's sake, Jake Funk played 3 snaps last week to Sony Michel's 16 after Henderson exited. So he will be on the field.
You got the first snaps, Denny. That's all that matters.
True. As we've learned with Ronald Jones, if he starts, you play him. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, everybody.
Anyways, we better get into the questions here. We got Jonathan Stevens on YouTube wondering right off the bat, Sterling Shepard or Devontae Smith in PPR. Does it matter that I'm starting Jalen Hurts as well? Are we concerned about Devontae Smith at all? After one good game, one not so good game in week 2, really good matchup, John, and the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. But Sterling Shepard getting so many targets, like 9+ targets in 2 straight games. Who are you starting here, and how do you feel about Devontae Smith in general?
It would actually be Shepard for me, given his team high in target share, leading the team in targets both weeks. Yes, there are only 2 healthy running backs available for the Giants today, so maybe we see an increased target share for Saquon Barkley, who we're all expecting to have an incredible game. I have him just 1 spot ahead of Alexander Mattison in my running back rankings. But overall, given that we have reports that Kenny Golladay will be limited in snaps today, that they may involve Kadarius Toney more, I don't believe. Even with Slayton on the field, we know Shepard will command still a higher target share. So, yeah, I have full confidence in Shepard today.
We got Kenny Golladay limited snaps potential. I saw that reported this morning as well. I saw it. I wrote it up on the site this morning that he was potentially limited snaps, which for how much they invested in him, not a great look, if he's healthy or if he's healthy enough to get on the field. But I think that is just furthering the idea that Sterling Shepard is pretty clearly this team's wide receiver 1, at least in terms of targets, like maybe not air yards, but in terms of the raw PPR volume that this league requires. Yeah, I think Sterling Shepard, I have him ranked, I know, over Devonta Smith, only a few spots, but ahead of him.
What we're seeing, by the way, with Sterling Shepard is like what he's kind of always been capable of when he doesn't have a soft tissue injury, which is basically never. So right now he doesn't. We'll see if he can stick with that. Jose Manuel Gil on YouTube, Denny, is wondering who he starts in his flex. And here's where we get into like all this week's hot button players. Is this just Alexander Mattison? Set it and forget it. And do you have Leonard Fournette as an RB2 this week, Denny? So I'm asking, Jose is asking a question and I'm asking you a question.
So yeah, for me, it would be Mattison, just under Mattison. I would have Javonte Williams and then Sony and then Fournette. I mean, Fournette is the guy again. Somehow it happened and we have to deal with that. I have to emotionally and mentally deal with that. So I think it is Mattison here just because of the potential workload, the potential game script, a back and forth, high scoring game. I think it's Mattison.
Fournette is more about like if you need help, you start him. For instance, I'm in a couple of high stakes leagues where I have James White, Fournette, and Nyheim Hines somehow on every team. And I texted all my partners this morning and said I feel more comfortable about Fournette, especially since he does have at least 4 targets. He has 11 total targets in both games so far. And so now that he apparently will have an increased role, we know the targets will be there as their pass catching back, plus additional carries, I'm assuming. So I don't think he's a bad start at all.
Even before we got any like coach comments or anything, by the way, this week, I moved Leonard Fournette into the top 24. I didn't feel great about it, especially against kind of a rough matchup. But the usage has been an RB2 usage in a year where like lots of the lower end RB2s, like in the Chase Edmonds zone, are getting like 15 to 16 touches. And that's almost a guarantee for Leonard Fournette. So yeah, I wouldn't fear Leonard Fournette, even though we do not love Leonard Fournette. Let's see here. We'll go to, what is this Alexander Mattison line here, Kyle? I mean, are we starting him over? Or are we confident enough to start him over like legit RB2s, legit wide receiver 2s? Because I feel like this is probably over Jamar Chase, correct?
Yeah, I think, I have Alexander Mattison ranked, I think almost exactly where Daigle said he has him ranked as my RB12, the last RB1 that I could fit in. And it's just pretty obvious that whenever they don't have Dalvin Cook, they still choose to lean on one specific back. They give Amir Abdullah snaps, but he's mostly just like, like fringe passing downs, primarily blocking, whereas Alexander Mattison projects to see 70+% of the team's carries. So to me, it's pretty obvious that on offense that we think can put up a lot of points, they're in a very high total game. Yeah, I think Mattison, I can't imagine you have Mattison and you're not starting him. Like you have to play in like a 4-player league to not be starting Mattison, because at least if you follow my logic where I think he gets 15 carries at a minimum and probably 3 or 4 targets, if you follow that logic, you're starting him over everyone but a handful of RB1s and wide receiver 1s.
I think you just put him in the Miles Sanders zone, which is where I have him ranked, just for the record, like the RB 16, 17, which is you're playing that in every league. I agree with that, Kyle. I'm going to throw this one to Daigle, this week's CEH sadness question. I mean, CEH is obviously playable, but is this like a downward spiral for CEH, or are we finally going to see kind of like the rise of CEH this week in a very good scoring environment against the Chargers?
The Chargers, as we know, are a run funnel, and I know it hasn't been pretty for CEH, who everyone recalls last they saw him fumbled on the last play of an island game, which makes it always hurt even more. Having said that, still, it's just a matter of whether they're going to pass to him. He has 3 of the team's 4 running back targets, which tells you Mahomes, as we know, doesn't pass to his running backs anyhow. He did not get the goal line carry over Darrell Williams, but again, Williams total -2 rushing yards last week. He is not the type of player. He's not the archetype. He's not in the stage of his career where they funnel CEH's touches to him. And so I think you still can play him as a very low confidence given what's happened so far, but still a middle of the road RB2, I think is just fine because it is a terrific spot. He just has to get in the paint, and we can't project that, unfortunately.
We cannot project. We can't project any good. I'm done on CH. Not that I was ever even in on CH. I'm just done. He's an RB4, everybody. Denny Bijou Experience on YouTube wants to know who to start between Sony Michel, James Robinson, and Mike Davis. I'm actually genuinely curious what your rankings will be here. And maybe the guy I want to hear you expand on a little bit is James Robinson. Like, which is the real James Robinson workload, week 1 or week 2?
Probably week 2. I mean, I think that Urban Meyer and the Jags coaching staff is kind of realizing that James Robinson is by far their best option in the backfield. I'm not saying that Carlos Hyde, it's impossible that Carlos Hyde comes in and steals, short yardage carries and possibly goal line touches. But I think in a really fantasy friendly environment here in the Cardinals Jags game, a game that could really go off. I think you're starting Robinson over Davis, who just doesn't have any ceiling, it seems like, and then Michel. Michel's a fringe type player, type start this week, so we're going to go with Robinson.
Yeah, Denny's RB1, Cordero Patterson is really curbing Mike Davis's style. It's a real shame. Kyle Dvorchak, this is a good one. The DeAndre Hopkins line. He's playing through a ribs injury. DeAndre is the kind of player, when he plays, he usually produces. I've noticed DeAndre Hopkins slowing down ever so slightly the past year and a half, though. Do we have faith in an injured DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver 1, or do we start getting crazy? Do we start getting panicky and playing wide receiver 2s like Deebo Samuel over him?
Yeah, the problem is I'm not convinced Deebo is a wide receiver 2 anymore. The way he's being used is like wide receiver 1 numbers. Now, the only problem with that is we have a 2-game sample of it, and throughout his career, he's been more of that low A-dot. And his A-dot isn't super high, but he's been more of that low A-dot complementary piece, not to a wide receiver, but to George Kittle for the past few years. So if it was week 1 and you told me Hopkins was banged up and I didn't know the role for Deebo, I would say it's just so obviously Hopkins. Like he does this all the time, right? He doesn't practice on Wednesday, finally ramps up by the end of the week. Even though he's playing through some horrific injury, he still looks just as fine. And now we know his quarterback is playing better football than he ever has before. The passing attack looks incredible. They have one of the highest, I believe the second highest team total of the week. I'm still going to go with Hopkins, but Deebo in the past 2 weeks has really pushed to make this a lot closer than I would have expected. Even with a healthy Hopkins, Deebo is a very good option right now. It's just you're comparing him to the wide receiver 1 for the co-favorite for the MVP this year.
It's a good point on Deebo. And Deebo's another guy, kind of different player than Sterling Shepard, but similar to Sterling Shepard. And let's just see what he can actually do healthy. Please stay healthy, Deebo Samuel. Chris on YouTube needs help in a super flex league. Does he start Carson Wentz or Taylor Heineke as a second quarterback? And this seems like a good time to throw to Lawrence Jackson at Lord Don't Lose, who wants to talk about the virtues today of streaming the Titans defense against full body cast Carson Wentz.
Got a sleeper defense that can help you for the next few weeks. Nobody got them right now. Tennessee Titans defense. Yeah, I said it. The 29th ranked defense in fantasy. Well, you might say, well, why the Tennessee Titans? They bad. They gave up 38 points to the Cardinals and 30 to the Seahawks. Yep, that's what Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson at quarterback. The next 3 weeks, though, you got potentially Jacob Eason. And even if Carson Wentz do play, the Colts ain't been great right now. You get Zach Wilson and the struggling Jets team. And you get another rookie, Trevor Lawrence. And another struggling team, the Jags. Ooh. And I don't know if you noticed or not, 24 of the 30 points that the Seahawks did score on the Titans was all in the first half. Titans defense was locked in that second half. Take note of that now. This could be a very opportunistic defense. Harold Landry, Bud Dupree coming off the edge. Autry, who's solid up the middle. Defensive back might not be the greatest. Versus these few teams, they be alright. I was not born yesterday. Picked them up before I made their video. Ha! Get them now so you don't have to on waivers. You dig that?
Listen, it's critical what he did. He picked him up before he made the video. You know, you got to do that as a fantasy analyst before you deliver your take to the masses. You got to go ahead and make the move.
Before I forget, Daigle, who are we playing in our survivor pools this week? You had last week the strategy all in hand, and this is Pat last week talked about the leagues he always forgets, like, oh, this weird site that was invented in 1979 before the internet was a thing. I have 3 leagues on there. That's my survivor picks. Daigle, who are we playing in survivor this week?
Daigle has not survived. He is frozen.
This is the Broncos week.
Right,
the mic was muted since I'm a professional and can still do this correctly. The end of this 3-game stretch run where the Broncos haven't played anyone. So we still don't know if the Broncos are good or not. We think they are, but again, they have not played anyone to date. Now it's their home opener in altitude against the Jets. We are absolutely taking the Broncos this week.
Perfect. Good to know.
I just got to say, it was Panthers week is what the week that it was. And I wasn't worried about it at all at halftime at all on Thursday night. Zach on YouTube, I'm going to throw to Daigle for this one. I mean, wondering about Rondale Moore, Sterling Shepard. I'm assuming it's Sterling Shepard, but maybe it's not. And give us a spiel on Rondale Moore. How are we feeling? We talked about, the limited snaps, the limited routes, but how that might just be the kind of player he is. They might, when he's in, they prioritize touches. How are we feeling about Rondale Moore? Is this point chasey, John?
I shouldn't be allowed to talk about Rondale Moore because I'm struggling with my wide receiver 2 start sits on my own teams with him because I don't want to leave him on the bench. Just knowing what he's done so far, leading the team in targets through 2 games, despite running the 6th most routes behind both Chase Edmonds and Max Williams and their 3 other receivers, it's wild. And you would think his usage only continues to increase, especially with DeAndre Hopkins questionable, but playing through that injury today. So I still am very high on Rondale Moore, but Sterling Shepard is safer. Admittedly, he's just safer.
He said, yeah, but man, it's going to be hard for us to be safe with Rondale Moore, isn't it? For kind of all the reasons you laid out, and DeAndre providing even more of an opening. So maybe just let it be, folks, with Rondale Moore. Just let it be this week. Denny, Davis Paddock on YouTube wants to know who should start in his flex in a standard league. Yeah, this is a website he's on with me on 80sfantasyfootball.com. Trey Sermon, Rondale Moore, or Michael Pittman. I'm assuming in the standard league we are, of course, going with the running back.
Standard. I love that I get the standard questions, by the way. We are yeah, I mean, I guess we're going with Sermon with the belief that he'll be the lead back against the Packers. I suppose that's the thinking here. If not, maybe you just roll with Moore and hope for a few big plays and maybe an uptick in snaps. But the way that Moore is used, around the line of scrimmage, that's PPR nonsense. So standard, I guess, Sermon.
Yeah, Davis, it's Trey. He could have just said a one-word answer and just said Trey, but it's Trey.
I'm paid by the word, so.
Kyle, Joey Middleton on YouTube would like to know Alexander Mattison, Saquon Barkley. So this will help establish the Mattison line and also give us your thoughts on Saquon this week. Is it finally Saquon week?
I'm literally checking my ranks to make sure I don't choose the wrong one because I have Saquon Barkley ranked higher, and I would go with Saquon Barkley here just because we saw week 1, he played, I believe, 29 snaps. They literally doubled it to 58, I believe, in week 2. We also saw him pick up 4 more touches in week 2. And then what they healthy scratched his backup. So I think given that all the team signs, all the things they can control over Barkley's workload, it has told us that he is now, after 1 week, he was 1 week very not healthy. Can't play Saquon Barkley 30 snaps in week 1, but that second week, you get that second week of practice in, you get the long practice, the long week of practice. I believe they had 9 days rest coming into this game. You can totally fire him up now. So I go Saquon Barkley here. It's a good problem to have, though. You have, I believe, 2 RB1s. I have Barkley as a top, I believe, 8 running back. If they're going to use him as any approximation of Saquon Barkley, that's the closest thing you'll find to Christian McCaffrey in the NFL. So I'll take that, even though, having Mattison, having the bench Mattison would be frustrating.
Daigle, I mean, if we get another 15-touch, 52-yard week from Saquon Barkley, Is it actually time to worry then, or is it still just too small of a sample size? Even though 3 games is a ton in season-long fantasy, like what would be a worrisome performance from Saquon Barkley today?
And the worry is obviously with Jason Garrett and this offense as a whole. So if he gets all the touches but underperforms, I think you just continue telling yourself, "Oh, this is the kind of player I drafted: a talented running back in a bad offense, just like Najee Harris, just like Jonathan Taylor." And so you have to continue starting at that point. But if you are fortunate enough to have someone to get similar touches, that's when you can do okay, I guess I can sit this guy. But even if he gets all the touches today, I can't imagine being at a point where you're just benching Barkley now, assuming he's at full health, because he wasn't on the injury report either. Like today is presumably a full-on, full-go, no holding back.
I mean, Devontae Booker was the guy taking snaps from him, and they literally scratched him this game. Does anyone know? I didn't even know this, or at least I didn't remember who the backup is now.
Gary Brightwell.
Very impressive.
I mean, it's a guy we've all heard of. We've been talking about him all week.
Yes, Gary Brightwell.
Gary Brightwell. People can't stop. I mean, I'm getting texts right now about Gary Brightwell. It's just out of control.
I have him on every roster.
I do too.
I believe that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, actually with Denny, that's unfortunately not a joke. It's his RB1 today. Because his CPAT only league. He also owns Gary Brightwell.
Yeah.
Got someone coming at us from England. Hello, Scotty. Denny, Sterling Shepard, Devin Singletary, or Sony Michel. We probably know the answer here, but if you go with the obvious answer, how do you separate Devin Singletary and Sony Michel? Talk about Devin Singletary.
I mean, the usage last week in the Buffalo backfield was a little hard to decipher because the game was so lopsided against Miami, a blowout win for the Bills. Zach Moss got a lot of second half work. Singletary had the big play, 40-some yard touchdown early in the game. Singletary is proving somewhat productive in limited usage, which even last year with plenty of usage, he was not producing for fantasy purposes. Everything else was in line, snaps, pass routes, targets, everything except for the fantasy points. So I do kind of like him today, but I think you're just starting Sterling Shepard.
I kind of blacked out. Are you saying you like Devin Singletary? Someone likes Devin Singletary?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You could do worse. That's what I'll say about Singletary.
It is true. He's like a worst case scenario for fantasy because he has the touches, which is normally 90% of the battle. He just cannot seem to get the touches that actually matter at all.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, Scotty over in England, we're telling you to start Sterling Shepard. Harley Hauer on YouTube, Javonte Williams, Tyson Williams, Trey Sermon. I'm going to Daigle. These guys are all in the same zone. Do you feel particularly good about any of these guys? Obviously, we don't feel bad about any of them as like RB2 flexes, but yeah, rank these guys and like anyone you have a particularly good feeling about.
I still prefer, maybe I'm in the minority here, I like Tyson over Javonte and then Sermon in that order. Even though they said they were going to scale Tyson back, we talked about it midweek in a Good Football Show preview extravaganza, 2 parts, by the way, Wednesday and Thursday. So subscribe on iTunes and Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. That still actually Tyson's touch rate in that backfield increased. And we expect that to continue to happen as whenever the Ravens see Latavius Murray and Devontae Freeman, they see what we see. We are betting on the better talent in that backfield who is getting goal line carries as well as has 100% of the team's backfield targets, all 9 of them through 2 games. So I'm still buying in heavily into Tyson Williams in a tremendous spot. I don't think the Ravens can stop the Lions either. The Ravens defense is getting far too much credit if they're getting any at all right now. So I actually expect this one to go well over his 50 total.
Man, I'm scared about the Ravens defense. One of my boomer leagues, you have to roster 2 defenses and you don't have weekly moves. And
wait,
one of
what?
The Ravens. Yeah, I'm serious.
You are required.
What leagues are you in?
Say that again. You are literally required by law of this league to roster 2 defenses.
That's correct. That's correct.
I'm going to die on air over this.
That's correct. That's correct, folks. That actually is correct. I don't know. Would you start the Ravens or the Browns today? That's what people are coming up to me in the street asking me about this. Do we start the Ravens defense or we start the Browns defense?
It's the Browns.
Yeah.
I'm starting the Ravens just hoping for like chaos fueled like sacks and turnovers. But I mean, the Browns could also.
I mean,
eliminate
rushing
Cooper.
quarterbacks historically allow more points for sacks. So
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too. That's my exact thought.
Well, I got to text my brother-in-law. Dan on YouTube. He needs a replacement for Dalvin Cook between Michel, Elijah Moore, or AJ Dillon. Denny is making a curdled face. So I'm going to ask Denny this question: Who replace it? Who are we using here, Denny?
Can I instead drink a gallon of spoiled milk?
Yes. Actually, that would be great. Wash down a meat mountain with a gallon of spoiled milk. That'd be good content.
All right. So I'm going Hardman. I mean, he's out there. He's in a great fantasy environment in this Chiefs-Chargers game. He's playing a good amount of snaps, running an okay amount of routes. We would like more targets per route, I believe, but I think that he's the play here.
35% target share last week against a defense that only blitzed the Chiefs 5 times, I believe it was. So maybe you say, okay, the defense today for the Chargers is going to play similarly. Thus, they will feed Hardman again. It hasn't resulted in many points so far, but that's what you're hoping for.
Does anyone have an Elijah Moore take this week? Is anyone found going through the numbers reasons for Elijah Moore optimism?
You just got to hope he goes off on your bench. Like, you can't play him.
100%. Like, he's a guy who you're like, oh, if he goes off my bench, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, he starts picking up a bigger role, and I'm excited to play him. But there's just no, like, why would you possibly be playing, like, the Jets' third receiver at this point?
And you can't drop him yet either because the Jets' schedule opens up after this week. But this 3-game stretch has been miserable. Panthers, Broncos today, and Saints last week. Who was it? Patriots last week. So, like, he was never going to succeed in this stretch anyways, especially given how poor their offensive line is. So you wait for next week. Hope he goes well today.
Well, in one of my decidedly non-boomer leagues, 14 teams, 3 flexes, I am being
You got to
forced
flex
to
2 of those defenses in there.
Yeah. I'm no defenses. I'm being forced to play Elijah. I'd much rather be playing a defense than Elijah Moore, I would say. So I think we got to bring 2 defense formats back. I mean, I don't know what we're doing in fantasy football.
We are not doing that.
I don't know what we're doing in fantasy anymore.
I'm pushing back on that.
Wait, can we fire Pat? Is that allowed? Because I would love to use my fire Pat at this point.
If you guys vote as a block, if you're unified as a triumvirate, I can be fired. Actually, if you all
have
agree.
my vote. Yeah, my vote.
Oh my gosh! Cut the mic. Cut all their mics. I'm just going to do the rest of my show myself. Wildcat for gaming. He was playing in a wow. I mean, I don't even know how you decide a question like this, Kyle. But who we benching amongst these very big 3?
Bench one, I guess Terry McLaurin. The 2 other guys, just if you don't think of them as tight ends, like I know we see a tight end, we're like, oh, low upside, it's a tight end. These are the obvious 2 tight ends that defy that narrative. You just take the 2 guys with incredible target shares, incredible air yard shares in offenses that one, obviously we want to target in the Chiefs, and the other one, surprisingly, the Raiders right now lead the league in air yards. They are just passing more often and deeper than we have seen them do in years past. And when Darren Waller has a high target share of that offense, he's just gonna go off every other week, basically. So I think Terry McLaurin is a great player to have in this situation, but his offense is obviously the least appealing of the 3. So I'll take the 2 tight ends.
I know I was just fired, but I can fire Kyle for sharing fake news. There's no way the Raiders have the most air yards in the entire league. That's just a totally made up fact that can't be confirmed, and not true. Not true.
All right, well.
Malachi Live on Twitch. He's got a tough one. Who gets the nod in PPR, Daigle, between Jamar Chase and Julio Jones? Yeah, let's try to establish like the Jamar Chase line. What is Jamar Chase's wide receiver insert, and are you playing him over Julio Jones?
Still a high-end wide receiver 2. I would actually play Jamar Chase over Julio Jones, given the condensed target tree without T. Higgins. That is just me, though. I would understand if like Kyle or Denny said Julio, but I go Jamar Chase in this situation.
It's Chase season.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I'm still going Julio, but I don't love it.
Plus,
Leave it to the guy who plays 2 defenses to pick Julio Jones.
You don't play 2 defenses. You just have to roster 2 defenses. Let's clear this up. Now you are sharing actual.
We're never
going to
get over this.
You're sharing actual fake news now, Kyle. David on YouTube, Nyheim Hines or Sony Michel in PPR? This is actually a really, really fascinating question. I feel like Mr. Zero RB, Denny, do you chase the receptions or do we chase touchdowns with Sony Michel in a shootout?
All right, so Marlon Mack is inactive.
Bingo.
And that's significant. I mean, Hines had great usage, great peripheral numbers, and great production in week 1. I think he was tied for the team lead. in targets in week 1 for the Colts. So I think it's Hines because Mac is inactive, and the Colts are probably going to be playing from behind in this one, which usually leads to more Hines involvement. Not a ton more, by the way, because Jonathan Taylor is not a 0 in the pass game, but I think it's Hines.
Yeah, and Nyheim Hines, remember, in week 1 did have 8 targets, and that was with Mac not playing a snap, whereas like Denny said, 5 touches, 13 snaps for Mac last week, who I guess they scratched after they saw him get that workload. So now it's just Hines and Taylor. We have confidence in Hines again in PPR leagues.
I will say the Mac thing could just be obviously purely about, and like Jordan Wilkins could just slide in as like 1-for-1.
God help us.
For Marlon Mack. But yeah, I can't believe, how is he still on the team? Some of those guys just stick around.
They love him.
For improbably long. Yeah, they do really, really love him. Mike Clay also loves Jordan Wilkins. Mike, we love you. You're never going to give up Jordan Wilkins, though, are you? T-Bone skill set on YouTube. Is he crazy not to trust DeAndre Hopkins? The rib and, the game script, could be weird, Kyle, but season long, I mean, not to start your studsy, but there's kind of no way you can bench DeAndre Hopkins, correct?
I would say start your studs as long as they project to continue to be a stud. Like if Saquon Barkley never gets another target, maybe he's no longer a stud. Maybe he's not a stud in any given week. But I said before, we've seen DeAndre Hopkins do this. It's not uncommon to see Hopkins get an injury, be questionable leading into the game, and then just be his normal self. He's seeing an incredible red zone share right now. He's seeing incredible end zone targets. He's a really good player with a quarterback who looks like he looked good before. I thought Kyler Murray was good last year. He looks otherworldly this year. Like we could be seeing a special season from him. So even if his target share comes down 5%, you are still getting the bulk of the targets, I think at least, from the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. So still start your studsy.
Start your stud. You heard it first, Kyle Dvorchak. Start your studs no matter what. Doesn't matter what the matchup is, what the environment is.
I have so many J.K. Dobbins lineups, so I just can't take them out of, and I don't know what to do.
yeah, there you go. Coming at you for about 17, 18 more minutes on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's. Still got lots of great questions coming in. Trying to find a particularly painful one to give to Denny.
Thanks.
Well, I'll give this one. To Denny. It's not a painful one. And I think we know the answer to this, but give us your answer and then just give us your George Kittle take.
I mean, you gotta play Kittle. I don't like saying it.
You gotta start your studs, folks.
Yeah, start your studs. Start your studs.
You have a stud, you start them, and that's what you have here. I mean, fans involved. Very, a quietly productive early season for him and Albert O. Somehow the Denver tight end seeing a solid, target share together combined. But I think Kittle is the play here. I mean, the hope is that this game gets a little bit back and forth. The Niners are forced to use their all-world tight end in the passing attack. Against a Packers team that's not particularly great against tight ends. TJ Hawkinson had a nice game against them. What was it last week? Feels like 6 weeks ago, but yeah, on Monday night. So it's Kittle.
Much like how Bryson just flexed whenever he was introduced for Team USA to the crowd.
Yep.
This is the week that Kittle flexes.
You
cannot get past the Packers. Then we truly start worrying about his usage.
That's right.
You want to talk about fired? Having the Ryder Cup on during our live show, having golf on.
I'm an American. I support my country.
It's true. That is true. We are supporting America. So I'll let it slide on the patriotism grounds. But speaking of very patriotic, is adjusting your ranks. Denny every week goes into the main reasons we need to be adjusting our ranks. Let's just roll the clip because there's nothing more patriotic than Denny parsing press conference quotes and making wild rankings adjustments based on them.
Not wild. Hey everyone, this is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge with another edition of Adjust the Ranks. Today we start with Raiders kicker Daniel Carlson, who admitted at a press conference this week that he, quote, took a loss in fantasy in his friends and family league because of his fantastic Week 2 performance against the Steelers when he scored 17 points, drilling all 4 of his field goal attempts in the Vegas victory over Pittsburgh. This man knew he was playing against himself and still delivered 4 critical field goals for his team. We must adjust up. Nothing can stand between Daniel Carlson and NFL success, including the outcome of his all-important fantasy matchups. This is crucial. This cannot be emphasized enough. We are adjusting up, way up, on Daniel Carlson. Next up is Raiders quarterback Derek Carr. Devontae Adams, Carr's former teammate at Fresno State, reportedly offered to send a barber to Derek Carr's house to get his hair cut. Derek Carr declined, saying that this is the longest his hair has been since the tender age of 13. Now, we must adjust on Derek Carr. We're adjusting up. Derek Carr is a new man, both on the field and follically, really. He no longer looks like a angsty 19-year-old kid. Instead, he wants to look like that angsty 19-year-old kid's father. And I think we should respect that. We are adjusting up on Derek Carr for the rest of the season. Once again, this is Denny Carter with NBC Sports Edge, reminding you to adjust the ranks.
You know, it could be hard to know like what patriotism is in these confusing modern times, but Daniel Carlson, what he did, that is patriotism.
It is.
Serving something greater than himself, serving
right.
his community, his friends and family. That is patriotism from Daniel Carlson. Adjust up on Daniel Carlson for sure.
Bryson driving the green on hole 1 on a par 4, also very patriotic. Just letting you know.
Oh, baby.
Also patriotic, kickers. Denny, we need your kickers of the week. You know, it's 12:42 Eastern. This is about the time people start pulling up waivers, considering maybe adding a kicker.
Right.
Who are the kickers of the week?
Yeah. Well, my top 10 kickers goes something like this. I'm pulling up now. We have Matt Prater, number 1. Brandon McManus, ranked 2.
Chalk, too chalky.
Justin, I'm gonna get weird in a second. Justin Tucker at 3. Daniel Carlson, the aforementioned Carlson, at 4. Tyler Bass 5. Harrison Butker 6. You know, feel free, by the way, to not feel like you have to play Butker every week, because the KC offense is so good in the red zone and just outside of the red zone. They don't settle for field goals, and you kind of get that idea once you've rostered Butker for a few weeks.
Is there someone that you would actually keep, or do you think every kicker can be dropped for a better kicker every single week?
Yeah, well, part of the reason, you know, you shouldn't reach for guys like Tucker and Butker is because you're going to be in these positions where there will be better weekly plays. Like, I'm definitely playing McManus over Justin Tucker, but it's hard to tell someone who drafted Justin Tucker to drop Justin Tucker. So anyway, the answer is no, nothing is sacred with kickers. Okay. You can, I give you permission to drop your elite, we're going to say elite kickers. But, you know, guys like Prater and McManus are becoming and should be every week options going forward. So it's not like you're dropping them for a guy who kind of has an okay matchup this week, and who knows if he's even on the team in 6 weeks, you know?
So, supposed man of the people, Denny, thinks all kickers are replaceable. Very good to know.
Right. And just to finish it up here, number 7, Graham Gano. 8th, I have Greg Zuerlein. 9th, I have Nick Folk. And then 10, I have Randy Bullock. So again, just as a reminder, we want kickers that are going to be in neutral or positive game scripts. Can we always project that accurately? Of course not. Okay. So, but that's what we're looking for.
We're going to get on a closing questions blitz. Steve Rendazzo on YouTube wants to know, is Corey Davis bouncing back, John, or is he better off going with Emmanuel Sanders PPR?
Oh, this is so tough because, as we know, all the peripherals for Emmanuel Sanders, between the team high in air yards, the target share, they were all good. Just didn't come down with the catch. And now we have what we expect to be an up-tempo game between Washington and Buffalo. Oh, gosh. I guess, is Corey Davis safer? This is so close. I think I'd play Sanders because his ceiling is higher on a slightly lower target share. We saw last week, though, even when Corey Davis gets the target share, like, it just doesn't matter because this offense in bad spots is so bad. They just can't protect, and now they're getting Von Miller. It's going to be a disaster. So I go Sanders. I think I just talked myself into Sanders.
I will say Sanders is one of those guys, when you look up like his peripherals, they're like, wow, he's playing every snap. He's getting 92 targets a week. That's surprising. So I think it probably is Sanders. Kyle Dvorchak, we haven't let you speak in quite a long time. Raiden11 on Twitch. He lost Deontay Johnson. He's got Michel, Hardman, Darius Slayton, and Will Fuller. Who are you starting, and what are your Will Fuller thoughts this week?
Well, per my own rules, you simply must start Deontay Johnson. Studs, start your studs. No, I think that the upside of Will Fuller will always be great, but the floor for him is literally a 0 because this offense could be the worst offense. They could be as bad as the Jets with Jacoby Brissett. Like, that is just perfectly within the range of outcomes. And it's also within the range of outcomes that he doesn't come back to see a massive target share, because now he's competing with more competent receivers. Outside of last year, all he had was Brandon Cooks to fight off. Now he has probably at least a deeper receiving core to fight against for targets. So I love Will Fuller. This is not a Will Fuller slander, but I'll probably just take Michel Hardman here. Still, playing about 75% of the team snaps, seeing an 18% target share through 2 weeks. Is he going to convert on that volume very often? No, he's Michel Hardman. That's not what he does. But when he does convert on it, it's going to be massive. So I'll just take what I think is essentially the same upside as Will Fuller, but the fact that it comes in an offense that is just leagues better. They're not even playing in the same league almost. That I'll take Michel Hardman. I know it's risky, but none of these guys are safe. I'll just take the one that I think has the most possibility, the most realistic chance to attain his upside.
I think I couldn't have broke it down better. Denny Bob Garrett on YouTube wants to know Tony Pollard or your RB1 Cordell Patterson. Where are we going here?
I think, man, that's tough. I think I'm going. I feel like it is. I don't even know what you're going to say. I guess I'll go Pollard.
I was going to say, I guess it is a tough question, but this isn't like a make or break. I guess it is. Every question's make or break for your team. Yeah. But John, what about Tony Pollard or Cordell Patterson?
I mean, I have this situation in a couple of leagues, and I lean Pollard and hope he sees more targets. That's pretty much it for me.
John, I know you were amongst the many smart people in the industry leading the Zeke. Are you worried about Zeke? I know it's only been 2 games, but are we worried about Zeke?
I wouldn't say worried, but I do need to see a normal game. We saw 51 attempts, 58 dropbacks, was it, in week 1 against the Bucs in a concerted pass-heavy game plan. And then we saw fewer than 30 pass attempts last week compared to 31 total carries, because that's what they did. They just decided to attack on the ground against the Chargers, a run funnel team. So we just need to see a normal offense. Zeke still leads the league in routes run among all running backs. And I know people like to cite targets per route run, but also I only use that stat really to try and find regression in season. I don't think it actually means this player's always going to attract like Tony Pollard. Pollard ran 7 routes last week. I don't think he's going to see 3 or 4 targets on 7 routes every single week. So I wouldn't say I'm worried just yet, but I would like to see a normal game plan for them.
It would be nice.
Because then we could understand everything more.
We could, yeah. It is. That's the problem with the Cowboys. I feel like they're going to be in one crazy, unusual game script after another,
which makes them a better team. That's what they should do. It just makes our lives harder. And I know Kellen Moore cares about our lives on this show right now. So,
well, he should.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of us, Kyle, for this question, will say start Justin Herbert over Justin Fields and the shootout spot to end all shootout spots. But is Justin Fields making his first NFL start? Is he a QB1 top 12 option?
I have him, I think, right at 12. I think you guys might be a little lower, but generally have him as at a minimum a high-end QB2. We saw he got 10 carries last week and didn't even start the game. He came in at halftime or whatever. He's just a super athlete. He's like a Cam Newton level athlete. He runs a 4.5 something. So yeah, I think in this case, you do happen to have a quarterback in Justin Herbert who is playing in maybe the game of the week, if not, the second best game of the week. It should be an incredible scoring environment, whereas Fields just doesn't have that level of upside where both these teams could be throwing 50 times a game or 50 times in the game, going back and forth, scoring long touchdowns. Herbert does have that. That could just be it could be a 65-point game at the end of the day, whereas it's not going to happen for Fields. So I think for most situations, if you're asking, should you start Fields, I would say yes. However, in this case, I think, you're facing him against probably a top 6, top 8 quarterback on the week. So in this case, I'll take Herbert.
Denny, Johnny Benjamin wants to know Cortland Sutton or Marquise Brown. Cortland Sutton had the horrible dud. Then he had the explosion game in week 2. This is a fairly tough question, but who are you going with? Are you worried about Marquise's ankle injury?
A little bit. I mean, mostly this. I think this comes down to volume and role, and without Jerry Jeudy in the lineup for Denver, I think it has to be Sutton. Sutton is looking like he's emerging as a target hog in that offense. Marquise Brown has a 30% target share, which would be great on a team that threw more, but Baltimore just is not going to do that here. Certainly, I think this is ground domination day for the Ravens. I mean, Marquise Brown could always have a long touchdown with his speed and the way they use him, but I think Sutton is the far safer play here.
Saquon, if you're listening, take inspiration from Cortland Sutton's week 2, coming back from that knee injury. Kind of eased in, but then just explode. Just take inspiration from Cortland Sutton if you're listening, Saquon Barkley. John Daigle, the 3 huge names kind of all have weird extenuating circumstances, except for Justin Jefferson. The usage has still been amazing. Who are you playing of these 3? And I asked you if you're worried about Zeke. Are you worried about Calvin Ridley?
Not worried about Calvin Ridley. Maybe start worrying today if the targets go down or something like that. But I actually think it's a great day for Pitts and Ridley because we now get to see them without Russell Gage and what this offense can become. So a condensed target tree. Knowing Amari Cooper's injury, usually on your team, I wouldn't worry. I would just start him. But when you have 2 other top 10 guys like Ridley and Jefferson, why would you take a chance? Just don't play Cooper. Just play Jefferson and Ridley, get him out there. Make it easy on yourself.
That is the correct diagnosis, I believe. Kyle, help a girl out. C. Walker on YouTube. She needs an RB and a flex between CEH, Tyson, Trey Sermon, and Cortland Sutton. A lot of the du jour names of the week. Kind of a hard decision.
I will take CH here out of these guys, out of the running backs at least. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he goes out and wouldn't shock anyone if he goes out and goes 12 for 32, fumbles and loses a touchdown to his backups. No, it wouldn't. But at the end of the day, he's still seeing the bulk of the red zone work, the bulk of the carries. As Daigle said earlier, he's seeing nearly all of the targets as well. They aren't throwing to their running backs, but when they do, it is him. So I'll take CH out of the running backs and then Cortland Sutton. Very obviously, I sectioned off the running backs because I already knew Cortland Sutton would have been the guy here. So Cortland Sutton in the flex, pretty obvious. Just going to see a monstrous target share from a quarterback who's good enough, and now they face a atrocious Jets team. They shouldn't even be able to have any reasonable amount of time possession. It's going to be just all Denver. I'd imagine they're 11-point favorites. How can a team in Denver who just acquired Teddy Bridgewater in the offseason be a double-digit favorite is beyond me, but they are, and we're starting Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, the Jets are making the impossible possible, and the Broncos are very going to be a hard team to peg because they're about to be 3-0 with 3 very convincing victories against those 3 horrible teams, and it's quite possible the Broncos are not even good. We've got late breaking news, by the way. Jay Glazer is confirming early reports that Dalvin Cook and Darrell Henderson will be out. So it's officially Mattison. You've got 5 minutes left. If you were for some reason panicking, holding out hope, bench Dalvin Cook now. Get Alexander Mattison in your lineups. Sonny Michel, I don't know what to do with that one. But very hard to see to this next one. But just wanted to say how terribly saddened we all were by the death of fantasy pros as Mike Tagliere. Just such a good human being, such a tireless worker, just such a nice guy that we've all crossed paths with many times over the years. Just a horrible tragedy. Just there's nothing to say. It's just. And fantasy pros, they're raising money for Mike and his family. He left behind a wife and 2 children. Check that out on their Twitter page. And just wanted to say how just truly sorry and deeply saddened we were by the passing of Mike Tagliere.
When Chris Wessling passed, you can tell how appreciative someone is that they got to meet someone by looking and just seeing all the responses. And yesterday, if you were around on social media or wherever it was, you heard about the passing of Tags and just saw how everyone was appreciative to meet him at one point in time. Genuinely a gracious human being. So just to go back and reflect and read on all that, you can see that he was a terrific person. And yes, you go check out the account. He, of course, leaves behind children, the worst possible situation for Tabby, his wife, as well. So if anything, just go talk to them, reach out to them, let them know you're thinking about them, and check out the account she set up.
He was as genuine as they come, and he meant what he said, and he said what he meant, and I always appreciated that. No one loved our game more than Mike, and he will be missed.
Yes, we'll miss you, Mike. And that does it for today's show. Good luck week 3. Hope you can cut through the injury morass, and we'll be live all week, all of our various shows, all of our content. We'll be back next Sunday on a good football show, Fantasy Kickoff, served by Applebee's, noon Eastern. For John, for Denny, for Kyle, I'm Pat. We'll catch you later.